Girl Lillie Mae, and you already know what time it is. It's consulting time. Let's get to it. Bringing you the greatest and the brightest creators, leaders, and innovators from around the globe. We'll always leave you with joy, jewels, and justice. Purpose over popularity is our motto. Now let's get to it. It's consulting time. Tap in to It's Consulting Time with your girl Lillie Mae on Instagram Live, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and ID 104 Radio, home of the independently dope via the Live 365 app. You never want to miss these intentionally purposeful conversations with creatives, leaders, and innovators from around the globe. Tap in, tap in, tap in. What's up, everybody? It's your girl Lillie Mae, and you already know what time it is. It's consulting time. Let's get to it. Bringing you the greatest and the brightest creators, leaders, and innovators from around the globe. We'll always leave you with joy, jewels, and justice. Purpose over popularity is our motto. Now let's get to it. It's consulting time. Tap in to It's Consulting Time with your girl Lillie Mae on Instagram Live, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and ID 104 Radio, home of the independently dope via the Live 365 app. You never want to miss these intentionally purposeful conversations with creatives, leaders, and innovators from around the globe. Tap in, tap in, tap in. Hey guys, it's the social side. The revitalization of It's Consulting Time is back, and we're taking it back to the basics. That's B2TB. This curriculum-based season will shine a light on public education surrounding civics, community organizing, and trending topics. Guys, It's Consulting Time back to the basics is supporting the transformation of cultures and subcultures while building self-sufficiency and generating collective impact. Remember, purpose over popularity is always and will always be our motto. Tune in to It's Consulting Time back to the basics every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be on all platforms: YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and you can even catch a few clips on Instagram. It's Consulting Time back to the basics with your girl Lillie Mae. See you there. Hey guys, it's the social side. The revitalization of It's Consulting Time is back, and we're taking it back to the basics. That's B2TB. This curriculum-based season will shine a light on public education surrounding civics, community organizing, and trending topics. Guys, It's Consulting Time back to the basics is supporting the transformation of cultures and subcultures while building self-sufficiency and generating collective impact. Remember, purpose over popularity is always and will always be our motto. Tune in to It's Consulting Time, Back to the Basics, every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be on all platforms: YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and you can even catch a few clips on Instagram. It's Consulting Time, Back to the Basics with your girl Lillie Mae. See you there. Hey guys, it's the social side, the revitalized. Hey, yes, Black lives do matter, but all lives matter. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. So I'm a little bit under the weather, so I'm going to attempt to really provide you with some amazing information and try to get it to you fast. Yes, tap in. So, guys, it's October. And the month of October, the theme is politics or policy. And the reason this is the theme for October is because November is our month of elections, right? And so that can be state, local, and our national elections. You need to really be concerned about your local and state governments. That's what we're going to talk about towards the end of the month when we talk about being policy focused. But tonight, I want to really kind of dive in and talk to you a little bit about the definition of policy and politics. And then we're going to start talking about the history of political parties because it gets real. Because there are some of you who constantly talk about, well, Democrats had slaves. And while that is true, that Democratic Party isn't the same Democratic Party of today. And so one of the things about taking it back to the basics is putting you in a position to win, putting you in a position to be provided with information that you actually need to be successful. So if, once again, as I always tell you, if all you want to do is see interviews with celebrities so you can type your messages in the comments and think that they're going to hit you up in your DM and all of that, this is not the place for you. But if you really want information and education that you absolutely positively need to be able to navigate this system, because y'all know the deal that they just voted on give the government 45 days. So all y'all getting them food stamps and all them checks and stuff and all that kind of stuff, y'all better pray that they can come back to the table and get it done again. But that's why what we're talking about here for the month of October and for November is so important. So if you have any questions or comments, guys, please engage, drop it in the chat. Please share to your timeline so that people can come in. Guys, it's important to understand politics and policy. Yep. They're out there taping tonight for BET Hip Hop Awards. Shout out to all of you that got to go. Remember, anytime I have links or anything like that, I'm not trying to politic. I'll just give them to you. However, if you come in my DM asking for a link and don't have the niceness or the calm and decency to greet me and say hello, good morning, good evening, or whatever, I'm going to leave your ass on red. Remember that. So if you did it, that's why you didn't get a link. All right. Now, policy or politics. So guys, first and foremost, let's just define. Let's do a little bit of the definition. So a policy, right? A policy is an overall plan. It's the overall plan that kind of provides the framework for how you want to, embrace or address or meet goals. So meet general goals. Politics, though, all right? Now, this is where it gets tricky because politics are more or less the authority surrounding the execution of those policies. So I want you to understand there's a difference between policy, politics, and being political. Okay? A policy is an overall plan or a framework, if you will, that supports embracing or, executing the general goals, right? But politics reference the activities that are utilized to make these decisions. So what we can say is politics are the activities that are utilized to create policies. Feel me? But being political is a choice. I'm going to run it back. Politics refer to the activities that are utilized to make decisions. And those decisions are often handed down in the form of policies. Okay, I don't want to get too deep into that because I want to talk about the history of the political parties because, guys, I get sick. Y'all know I get annoyed with people that constantly, I get so sick and tired of y'all, oh yeah, well, I this, and Republicans, and they Democrats had slaves. Yes, but guess what? There was a major shift in the parties in 1932. But I want to take you all the way back to the beginning because guess what? There have not always been political parties in the United States. Emerging political parties did not transform American politics until like 1824. And we're going to go there. All right. So just to give you a little history, political parties have shifted many times in 200 and almost now 250 plus years of national politics almost, right? And so even when parties have kept the same names for long periods of times, their issues, their principles, their demographics, and their regional support have all changed over time. Okay? So I want you to understand that as we go through this discussion and as we go through this month of October and we talk about these different policies and we talk about, these different political parties, I need you to understand that a political party is simply a group that is organized to nominate candidates to try to win political power through elections and to promote ideas about public policy. That's it. So realistically, you don't have to choose a political party. Do you need to understand the ideology of each party? Of course. But I have to believe in 2023 that the majority of us are moderates. We're moderate because we're liberal about some things. We're conservative about others. I tell people all the time, I don't mind being open about it. I am very conservative when it comes to welfare, period. I'm very conservative because I feel that often individuals get on welfare and they stay on welfare. And then there's this intergenerational transmission of welfare babies, which yields problems, period. However, I am a fan of being drug tested. Yes. I do think you need to be able to hold a job and sustain a job. And if not, your benefits need to be cut off. And it's not to take away from the babies, but it's because we have to be conservative about the economy. It's so interesting that we as a Black race of people, and right now I'm just talking to my Black folks, we as a Black race of people fight for everything else in the world, but we don't understand that the economy is the major thing that we need to be fighting for. Okay, but anyway, that's over y'all head. But anyway, let's get back to political parties. All right. So We're gonna go all the way back, guys. We're gonna go all the way back to the 1700s. And yes, I am a nerd. I am a geek. I love this stuff. I love it because this is really, really important. So y'all know 1776, they did the Declaration of Independence, and then we come down, we had the first United States Constitution. Well, 1796, right? From 1796 to about 1828-ish was the first so-called party systems. Now, understand this. The founders of the Constitution were opposed to political parties. They did not want political parties. They understood, though. Now, this is the thing. They understood, though, that they had to organize, right? They had to organize with individuals with a shared interest. So they still didn't have political parties. They were just groups of people. So they were what of today we would call interest groups. They were the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. Okay, now mind, this was after George Washington. Now, if y'all were a nerd like me in school, y'all will remember this. The father of our country, George Washington, was one. Two was John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Then was James Madison and also James Monroe. Then John Quincy Adams was number 6, All right. So there was George Washington. Okay. But then you came Federalists, Anti-Federalists. They were not political parties, right? The Federalists were a group of individuals who believed in what? Big government. The Anti-Federalists were individuals who did not believe in the government. And at that time, we're talking about, this document. We're talking about the Constitution. We're talking about how the Constitution is written. We're talking about, are we going to really focus in on reserved powers, the states being able to do the things that they need to do, or do we want this big government to rule? All right. So interestingly, James Madison, remember, James Madison was a Federalist. Thomas Jefferson was an Anti-Federalist. So even back then, there were arguments about economic policy. So Alexander Hamilton, y'all watch Hamilton? If you haven't watched Hamilton, you need to watch it so you'll understand what I'm talking about here. But Alexander Hamilton presented his economic policy, and it talked about economic stability. That was the first form of policy that split the North and the South. And so just to kind of tell you a little bit about what that economic policy held. Now, mind, this back in like 1796, like they wanted like full funding of national and state debts. And the crazy thing was at that time, the northern states owed more. And northern states, even back then, were more urban. Southern states were more rural. Guys, what's the difference today? It's the same. It is still the same. But that's why they want to create a national bank. And with the national bank, that's when the issues came about, because it was like, okay, hold up. We're not doing this. This is not what we're doing. And boom. So the economic policy did not actually pass, though, until a deal was struck to bring the nation's capital to the South. Now, I want to know if it's anybody under the sound of my voice that can tell me where the first nation's capital was located. Drop it in the comments. And if you can tell me, you'll get a prize. Okay. All right. So that's why we had the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. And understand, I'm going to go back and say it again. Those were not political parties. All right. Now, so we went through like 20 years. We went through like 20 years with these Federalists and Anti-Federalists. in about 1816, James Monroe was elected. And that is when the Federalist Institution, or the group of Federalists, dissolved. And then we come to the election of like 1824. And that's when your first actual political party was developed. And that was called, guess what? The Democratic Republican Party. The Democratic Republican Party. It was together, the Democratic Republican Party. Now, there were 5 Democratic Republicans that ran at that time. Now, mind guys, this is in the 1800s, and they still was running crazy. It was John Calhoun, John Quincy Adams, which he did become president eventually. William Crawford, he was like the Secretary of Treasury at the time. Henry Clay, he was the Speaker of the House, and Andrew Jackson. And y'all, we're going to talk about Andrew Jackson, because I'm trying to tell you, when I get to talking about Andrew Jackson, it's going to really take y'all back to a president that we recently had. All right, so we've already gone from 1796 to 1824. I want to go ahead and pose, are there any questions whatsoever about what who said it? York? All right. So, are there any questions about kind of the first party system that weren't necessarily parties? All right. Now, I'm going to classify the second party system as running from like 1832-ish to 1860. Because, guys, realistically, from like 1824 to 1832, you had a pretty interesting turn of events. All right. Martin Van Buren. Martin Van Buren was the individual that developed the idea of these national party conventions, right? And the reason he did that is because he wanted to strip the power from Congress and the caucus. So this is the thing. Prior to like 1832-ish, like, or maybe was it 1832 or 1836? Prior to that era, I'm gonna say the mid-1800s, Congress and the caucus, they chose these individuals. So Van Buren was like, hey, and I would presume, you know how they talked back in the day. I think that we need a system in place to stop Congress from having so much power. Because, guys, this was way before checks and balances and the separation of powers and all that stuff. So Martin Van Buren, as the father of parties, that's what they classify him as, he was the one that developed this idea of the National Party Convention. Now, this is where it gets tricky. By the time I think that 1832 election came, we still had the Democratic Republicans, okay? We still had the Democratic Republicans, but we also had national Republicans, okay? Now, those national Republicans that came about in about 1828, they ended up becoming what were called the Whig Party. So for a period of time, you had Democratic Republicans and Whigs, okay? And the Whigs came about because they were in direct opposition of Andrew Jackson. Let me tell you about Andrew Jackson and why I'm telling you history repeats itself. Andrew Jackson was a Democratic Republican. He defeated the elitist rule, and he focused more on the common folks in the election of 1828. What president did we recently have that did that? What president did we recently have that did that? Focused on the common people, focused on the popular folks. Stayed away from the elitists, because let me explain something to you. There's a difference between the elite and the popular. See, y'all follow the popular people on Instagram while the elite people are over on Instagram making decisions that you know nothing about. So I'll take the elite for 500, Alex. I'm just saying. All right. So Andrew Jackson, and I wrote a piece on this, guys, and I'll try to post it, repost it. It's on my Facebook page, Lillie Mae the Collective. I wrote a piece on them on this back in, oh God, guys, it's been so long ago. It's probably, Trump was in office when I wrote the piece, but I wrote it because Donald Trump's presidency mirrored the presidency of Andrew Jackson. It mirrored the presidency of Andrew Jackson, even down to Andrew Jackson and the Trail of Tears. I don't know if, and guys, for real, go back and do your research. If you took civics, if you truly were, you know, and yes, I was a whole nerd in school. I act foolish, but I'm trying to tell you, I love this stuff, and you need to understand this stuff so you can understand what's going on now. So we've always had opposition with Andrew Jackson, and because he was so radical, and because he was so outspoken, and because he focused more on the common folks, all them other presidents before Andrew Jackson, they weren't feeling it. They were not feeling it. So Henry Clay and Daniel Webster got together, baby, and they created the Whigs. They created the Whig Party. And guess what? In 1836, Martin Van Buren won. Now let's go back. Martin Van Buren is considered the father of parties because he developed the idea of the National Party conventions. He developed the idea of getting groups of people together with common interests and common goals to endorse a candidate so that Congress and the caucus could not put their little paws in it. And what happened? While he was organizing and the other folks was fighting, he was getting his platform set up so that in 1836 he could win. Now remember, Andrew Jackson won in 1828. Martin Van Buren won in 1836. Martin Van Buren was very, very, very smart, and he was very strategic. See, how do we correlate this to today? You ain't got to win in the here and now. You do not have to win right now. Be quiet, organize, and focus your efforts on the common and collective goal, and you will win. Okay? Now, election of 1836, you know, Martin Van Buren won, and then we have the Whigs and the Democratic Republicans. But I want to tell y'all about this election of 1836. Y'all, once again, 5 people ran in the election of 1836. Martin Van Buren, the one that won, William Henry Harrison. And I'm gonna remind me, guys, somebody remind me and type this in the comments. Remind me to give you a fun fact about William Henry Harrison and Zachary Taylor. But for that election of 1836, it was Martin Van Buren, William Henry Harrison, Daniel Webster, because you remember Henry Clay and Daniel Webster created the new party, the Whigs. But you heard what I said. Daniel Webster ran. Henry Clay did not run in 1836. He was okay with letting his friend run. Okay? Both of them didn't need the power. Hugh White and somebody else. But in that election, 3 Whigs ran, 1 Democratic Republican, and I think 1 anti-Jackson. But he wasn't necessarily a Whig, because this is what you have to understand. That's the thing about these parties. All the Whigs didn't necessarily agree with everything that Henry Clay and Daniel Webster set forth. However, you know, Mangum, W.P. Mangum, he was the independent. That was the 5th person's name. All right. But there was a lot of contention and disagreements between the Whigs and the Democratic Republicans. And believe it or not, guys, that contention lasted until like the 1850s. So during that time, All of the political rhetoric incited the people to just be crazy. They rioted. Yes, they rioted back then. They rioted. They acted a fool. They had parades. But see, guess what though? See, back then they called them parades. Now the wrong folks doing it. They calling them riots. But back then they called them parades, and they stroked their emotions during the parades. Okay. And they even had catchy slogans to simplify their views. And it's so interesting. I cannot wait to tell y'all how the elephant and the donkey came to be with the parties later on. But yeah. But anyway, all right. So fun fact, because I want to definitely give you some fun facts. William Henry Harrison was elected as president in 1840. And you remember he was a Whig. Now, Zachary Taylor was elected in 1848. This is the interesting thing about them. They were both Whigs. They were both war heroes, and they both died in office. Yep. So prior to any of the assassinations, these were the only individuals that, died in office. They were both Whigs, both war heroes. And guess what? They were all anti-Andrew Jackson. Yep. Oh, and there was a president in between William Henry Harrison and Zachary Taylor, and that was Polk. And he was a Democratic Republican. Okay. Now. All right, so and I know it's a lot. So if you want me to stop and go back, if you have a question, just look, feel free, to ask me a question. Because guys, I really want y'all to understand this stuff. Understanding this honestly will help you understand really what happened. Okay. So I also want to go back and let you know, like I told you, for a while there was the Federalist Party and the Democratic Republicans, but the Federalists were not necessarily a party. The Democratic Republican was a party. Understand, the absence of another party did not mean a lack of conflict within the Democratic Republican Party. There has been intra and inter political party conflict since the beginning of time. Since the beginning of time. And it's important that you understand that, okay? For real. Now, let's talk about these Whigs. Because the Whig Party, they were Northern industrialists and Southern planters. But this is what happened. In the 1850s, the issue of slavery split the Democrat Republicans and the Whigs. Now, understand something, guys. The Democrat Republicans of that day are not the Democrats of today, and vice versa. Because I'm sick of y'all people that keep saying Democrats had slaves. Yes, they had slaves back in the 1850s, but the parties switched over in 1932. So I need y'all to commit this to memory and stop talking that shit, because I have facts to back it up. And if your ass paid attention in civics and in government, you would have the same information that I have, United States history too. Okay. So once again, in the 1850s, the issue of slavery split the Democrats and the Whigs, and it created two third parties. So you had the Free Soil Party and the Liberty Party. Now, can anybody guess what the philosophy of those particular parties were? They were abolitionist movements. What was the abolitionist movement? They were against slavery. They wanted slavery to be abolished, right? And so these parties, okay, the Republican Party of the late 1850s, they were an anti-slavery party. But guys, I need you to understand something. They are not the same Republican Party of today. And I have, guys, and like I said, I have to drill this in. Because some of you are just so ignorant. Some of you are just so ignorant that you hear one thing and you don't research it. You don't go back to find the history behind it. Gosh, okay. So that Republican Party, and you know what, matter of fact, I want to keep this up as I talk about this so you understand. So that Republican Party of the late 1850s, they actually united a couple of people. They united the Northern Whigs, remember those were the industrialists, the anti-slavery Democrats, which were those Southern planters, the Free Soilers, and the Liberty Party. Okay? So guys, that is when we actually dropped the Democratic Republicans, and in 1860 is when we had Republicans and Democrats. But still not the same Republicans and Democrats of today. But in 1860 is when we actually established the party system that we have as it stands today without the same ideologies. Okay. So, Republicans pretty much, they would have dominated during that period from 1860 to 1896. But there were economic depressions in 1873 and 1890. And child, listen, y'all think these scandals and all this shit just started? There were scandals during Ulysses S. Grant's administration. Go look it up. But let me tell you something. The most competitive period in American history was during that time. Yep. The most competitive period in American history was during that time, which is really, really interesting because, you know, the Midwest was just discounted. And it's interesting when I look at how many people actually have migrated to the Midwest this day and time, because Midwest farmers were constantly losing because neither party took their frustrations into account. So guess what happened? They organized. The Midwest farmers organized in like the 1870s, and they had the Granger movement, and they came up with the Farmers Alliance. And guess what the name of their party was called? The Populists. The Populists. And that was simply because, like, they literally needed someone to look out for them. So, guys, I want y'all to understand something. The North and the South stayed in some shit, right? They weren't thinking about the Midwest. But guess what the Midwest did? The Midwest said, y'all not paying attention to us, so we gonna organize and make y'all listen. Oh, what a day it would be. Oh, what a day it would be if we would do the same thing. But see, we too worried about whose name gonna be on the paper, who gonna sign it, who gonna get the bag, and all of that. But those Midwest farmers, they organized, they created their interest groups, and they made the powers that be listen to them with their populist party. Okay. And so during that time too, the populist reign, 1870, 1880, 1900. I think they ran to about 1900, and then you had prohibition, socialist movement, and all of that. And you had other little parties here and there, like the Greenbacks and all of that. But for all intents and purposes, you still had your Republicans and your Democrats. So this is the funny thing. Y'all want to know how Democrats got the donkey thing, and Republicans ended up with the elephant. Now, understand this. The symbols are so interesting because if I'm not mistaken, the symbols haven't changed. But back then, they used cartoons. So Harper's Weekly was the cartoon, or the publication that was utilized to discuss politics. So Thomas Nast was the person that introduced the donkey as the symbol of the Democratic Party. And so basically, he said they're jackasses. And so that's how, they kind of, and I'm just like, okay, why did they embrace that? Like, what? And then, while Ulysses S. Grant was serving his second term, he was accused of like being like Julius Caesar or whatever. And they said he was trying to run for a third term. And so then, for some reason, Thomas Nast did it again. And he published the cartoon, and the elephant became the symbol of the Republican Party. So that's just, what does it really mean? I don't know. Only Thomas Nast knows. He's dead now. So I don't know. Maybe we can find some of his grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and maybe they can tell us what he was doing. I don't know. But I just thought that was really, really cool. All right, guys. So we still working our way down. Now remember, we're still talking about the Republican Party and the Democratic Party prior to 1932. So this is the fourth party system, Republicans and Democrats. During 1896 to 1932, Republicans were made up of Eastern manufacturers and like the industrial Northeast and Midwest. The Midwest found their party. They found their party, and so they shifted. And at that time, William McKinley was the candidate for the Republican Party, and the Democrats were made up of white Southerners and rural debtors. So William Jennings Bryan was the nominee for the Democratic Party. Well, that particular election was called the realigning election of 1896, but we still had not actually realigned yet. Now remember that. William McKinley won. And I think I want to say that from 1896, y'all, to 1932, Republicans held the White House for like 16 consecutive years. For real. 16 consecutive years. Period. And really for like 28 out of 36 years, they held it. However, the New Deal, Franklin Roosevelt came in with that damn New Deal. And I got all kinds of issues with this New Deal. But, like I said, Franklin Roosevelt came in. And during this time, so with the fourth party system, we didn't talk about, this is when the civil service kind of came to be. You started to have direct primary elections, more conversations about the 17th Amendment, referendums, initiatives, and all of that stuff. So I want you, and guys, you can look, I'm not giving you everything. I want you to look up some of this stuff on your own, because this stuff is important. This stuff is utterly important. But in 1932, this is when it switched. So guys, I want you to understand, in 1932, I'm gonna put it on the caption. 1932, political parties switched, okay, into today's parties, okay? And that's important. So I'm gonna make sure that is on this caption, because I'm sick of y'all talking about something I don't want to hear switch. It did switch, okay? So yeah, in 1932, the political party switched. And so you got to think about it. The stock market crashed. The Great Depression was blamed on the Republicans. So what happens? The new Democratic Party was formed, and it was made up of Southerners, urban workers, the minorities, African Americans, ethnic Americans, Jews, Roman Catholics, and farmers. And these were the groups that favored an increased role in federal government, for the federal government through the New Deal. So it was like public works, pro-union legislation, social welfare, and farm supports. That was under the new Democratic Party, the Democratic Party of today. So the Democratic Party of today is the Democratic Party that the Republicans transitioned into in 1932. They are the Democratic Party that support the working class and the poor. Okay. Republicans, which the Democratic Republicans transferred into the Republicans, they represent business interests and the more affluent individuals. And that is where we are today. Okay. Now, fast forward to like 1972. There has been increased division amongst the Democratic Party over the question of civil rights and voting rights and cultural issues, abortion, gay rights, and all of those things. Guys, political parties in the United States are just simply too decentralized for either party to take a national position and then enforce it at the state and local level. We absolutely do not have a responsible party system. We don't. We don't. And there's really no mechanism for a party to discipline office holders and ensure cohesion in policymakers. And I think that those, if I can leave you with anything tonight, please remember this. We do not have a responsible party system. We don't. We don't have a responsible party system. And additionally, there is no mechanism whatsoever, no mechanism, no policy, no procedure for a party to discipline office holders and ensure cohesion in policymaking. And if you don't believe what I'm saying, I don't care what's on the books, because if that were the case, that man would have been out of office before now. It wouldn't have taken a DA here in Georgia and in New York to charge him. So no, we do not have a responsible party system, and there is no mechanism for a party to discipline office holders and ensure cohesion in policymaking. Period. Period. If y'all have any questions, drop them in the comments because I'm getting ready to kind of wind it up. Guys, why is this so important? Why is this so important? Understanding, the political parties and the history thereof is so important because there are so many factors that have influenced this revolutionary change in our political administrative dichotomy, right? And it's so important that we begin to focus on national economic and technological development, the work of political innovators. We even need to pay attention to demographic and cultural shifts. And guys, this bullshit on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, those are not demographic and cultural shifts that I'm talking about. The popularity of Andrew Jackson and the popularity of Donald Trump is scary. It's scary. So realistically, guys, I really need you to think about what you want out of life. And it can't just be the bag. Okay? It can't just be a bag. There has to be something else. There has to be something else. One of the things I will say is that the formation of today's Tea Party and a broader awareness of American political history has definitely impacted the thinking of leadership in the Republican and the current day Democratic parties. Okay. They are becoming more and more concerned about challenges to the two-party system and their party's influence over American politics. And remember what I said in the beginning. Politics are that driving force or the activities that elicit this, that impact decision making or impact the making of policy. And so there is an increase in awareness amongst young voters. Did I ever feel ignored as a younger voter? No, because I understand the political administrative dichotomy. I understand that there are politics and there's administration. And I can't just vote. I have to vote and be a part of the policy-making process, which means I have to read the policy, understand the policy, and not just listen to what somebody's telling me. I need to read it for myself. It's all out there. You can go to the United States Senate's page. You can go to the United States House page. But guys, I don't even want you to think about it on that level. I want you to go to your local and state government pages and see what the hell they're working on. Do you know that before a rule can be made in your locality, they have to publish a public notice? Those are called rulemaking and adjudication procedures. They have to publish a public notice. So you can publicly comment on that. Guys, teen voters have the lowest participation rate of any group in the United States. And when I say teens, I'm talking about your 17, 18, 19, because you know you can register to vote at 17 if you'll be 18 by the time of the next major election. So those 18, 19-year-olds, they don't. Now, there was a teen party being organized by a really, really small group of youth in some American high schools. But the concern is that they might end up following the Tea Party's lead. Guys, I don't know what to tell you. I want to leave this with you, and I would love for you to comment later. But do you feel that the two major political parties in the United States, the Democrats and the Republicans, reflect the views of all Americans? Or do you feel that there is something that you have to offer? Are there some things that you have to offer? Or is there something that you want to learn or you're yearning to learn? Guys, pick up your pen and start writing. We post on social media all day. We look at stupid shit on TV. Why not tune in to something important and get involved? Guys, like I said in the beginning, this month is all about policy over politics. I know we ran through the history of the political parties. It was really, 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 really fast. But I definitely want to just highlight the fact that, remember, the flip-flop in the political parties occurred in 1932. In 1866, so the Civil Rights Act of 1866, Blacks maintained support of Republican Party, but by 1964, Blacks had already transitioned to the change in philosophy of the Democratic Party, okay? And Democrats started to evolve into more human rights and liberal efforts in the 80s. I also want you to check out something called Diverger's Law. And basically what Diverger's Law says is that third parties can compete, but they can't truly compete because there is no prize for winning, guys. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. A lot of people, you may not want to hear this information, but I pray that you learned something. And if you have any questions, you can always hit me up, www.lilliemaecollective.com. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you, and I hope you have a great evening. Of It's Consulting Time is back, and we're taking it back to the basics. That's B2TB. This curriculum-based season will shine a light on public education surrounding civics, community organizing, and trending topics. Guys, it's Consulting Time back to the basics. It's supporting the transformation of cultures and subcultures while building self-sufficiency and generating collective impact. Remember, purpose over popularity is always and will always be our motto. Tune in to It's Consulting Time back to the basics every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to be on all platforms: YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and you can even catch a few clips on Instagram. It's Consulting Time back to the basics with your girl Lillie Mae. See you there.